So where we left off in the last episode, it was obvious that Samuel Little is done with his monstrous ways. But that didn't change the fact that Lady Justice has refused to turn a blind eye, and that is where we pick up on this episode. This is the downfall of Samuel Little. So in 2001, the LA Robbery and Homicide Division developed a special unit designed to work on all the backlog of cold cases that are over 5 years old. It was created due to the fact that there had been so many breakthroughs in forensics and DNA profiling, and during this time there were over 6,000 cold cases just in the LA area alone. This will be called the Cold Case Special Section Unit, born with the motto that everyone counts or no one counts. On May 6, 2009, this unit examined a semen sample that was found on Guadalupe Apodaca, which was the one that the little boy found in the abandoned auto shop that was murdered on a dirty mattress. They scheduled her sample to get tested. On March 1st, 2010, they also decided that the skin samples that were found under the fingernails of Audrey Nelson would also be scheduled for testing. She was the one that, when he murdered her, dumped her body inside of a dumpster behind a closed business in 1989. Now, there's Detective Mitzi Roberts. She would join the specialized unit in 2010. And get this, Mitzi Roberts before this was actually a bartender, and she also owned several restaurants in the LA area that a lot of the cops and stuff like that would frequent. They'd go there regularly. She also found detective work very interesting and would always have conversations with these off-duty officers until one day, one of them suggested to her a career change. So she did just that. She decided to drop all of that and join the police force. So in 1995, she joined the LAPD Investigations Gang Crime Unit in the Valley, working the night shift in the infamous Rampart Division.
Rampart.
In 2000 is when she was transferred to homicide. So by the time that she joined the cold case unit in 2010, she was already a well-experienced detective. Her first task assignment was in this unit was to try and solve the Black Dahlia murder. April 26th, 2012, both DNA samples from Audrey Nelson and Apodaca cases confirmed a match to Samuel Little, whose DNA was in the national database due to the fact that he has served time in prison. While building these cases, Samuel is nowhere to be found, as he is constantly traveling with no fixed addresses. All he is doing at this stage of his life is sleeping in his car and wandering around homeless camps throughout the U.S. Mitzi looked into Samuel's mile-long arrest record, being arrested 24 different states, with over a handful of times or over a dozen times in all these different states.
Dang, that sounds like nowadays.
Right. And so he was arrested for some of the pettiest crimes, like theft and shoplifting, all the way up to some more severe crimes like the sexual assault or the attempt murders. She was also disgusted to see that Samuel in 1976 was sentenced to 3 months for rape and attempt murder of Pamela K. Smith, and how in 1983 he got off for the murders of Patricia Mounds and Melinda Dupree, along with the attempted murders of Hilda Nelson and Layla McClain. And then again in 1985 with the Lori Burris and Tanya Jackson, despite in both cases being caught dead to rights for attempt murder and kidnapped and rape, only being given 4 years, of which again he only served less than 2 years for that. That's 2 cases that he should have served more time and didn't even do that. Mitzi was quoted saying of Samuel, he had such a hatred for women and he was just preying on the weakest women. That's what society would consider throwaway women. Samuel had no bank account, credit cards, or even areas. They weren't even sure if the vehicles that he had were registered in his name. Mitzi spent months calling every agency from the states that Samuel would have tended to frequent, attempted to track him down. She would check national crime databases regularly to see if regular beat cops would come in contact with Samuel and run his name, which would always happen, but according to Mitzi, they were always 2 days behind him.
Wow.
The reason Mitzi didn't put out warrants for his arrest or bolos to other agencies was because she was worried that Samuel would go into hiding if he knew that police were actively looking for him. So she remained patient, hoping to catch a break, in which September 3rd of 2012, that happened. A detective in Louisiana ran Samuel's name after finding him outside of a homeless shelter in the company of some prostitutes and a crack pipe in his pocket. On September 5th, again 2 days behind, Mitzi called that detective, who went back to the shelter to see if Samuel was still there, but Samuel was gone, leaving Mitzi with the same feeling of being behind 2 days.
Right.
However, the Louisiana detective discovered that Samuel was using a Walmart card for his purchases, and Mitzi was able to gain access to his information by providing Samuel's date of birth and social. She was able to see that Samuel used his card at a liquor store a few blocks away from the shelter that he was last seen at. She contacted U.S. Marshals, who went out to hunt for Samuel, and 2 hours later called Mitzi to inform her that Samuel had been taken into custody.
Oh.
He was arrested on drug warrants, so that way they would not prematurely alert him to the looming murder charges that they were about to place on him. Mitzi partnered up with another detective from her unit by the name of Rick Jackson. Together, they tracked down Hilda Nelson, Layla McClain, who both escaped Little in Pascagoula, and Lori Burrows, who had played dead in 1984 to get away. They were unable to find Tanya Jackson. She was the only survivor that they weren't able to find. However, they did locate the two officers that arrested him that night, so that way they could testify to what they had seen and done that night. A third DNA match was found during this time. It was a semen sample that was left on Carol Alford, whose body was found dumped in the alley in 1987. Samuel was charged with 3 counts of murder. The time that his time locked up awaiting trial, Samuel would still claim his innocence this whole time. On August 18th, 2014, trial began for Samuel. The prosecution was led by Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, who did a tremendous job establishing similar patterns in all 3 murders, along with the matches from the DNA. So far, so good.
Right. Now on the right track.
Yes. When Layla McClain was on the stand, she was asked to point to her attacker. She immediately pointed to Samuel and said, "Yeah, it's that man over there, only he's uglier now." Lori Burrows was, when walking up to take the stand, grew so nervous that she had collapsed to the ground and started hyperventilating. After being helped to her feet and walked to the stand, she provided a very detailed story of what happened to her that night. Remember, that's the one that she played dead.
Yeah.
Hilda Nelson also did well, did a great job painting a picture of her narrow escape from death. While all 3 girls told their stories, Samuel would every so often smirk and laugh. So you got to understand that wouldn't play well to the jury. So he was only burying himself at this point. Both the former San Diego cops gave their accounts about what happened the night of the Tanya Jackson attack. At Samuel's sentencing on September 25th, 2014, Samuel stood up in the court and said, "This conviction was brought on by lies and liars, coached by liars, and I hope that in the new trial, if I get one, the evidence that was withheld and overlooked will be brought up by my attorneys in a fair trial. The obsession of labeling me a serial killer without any proof is illegal lynching, speculation, and surmising is not proof."
Wow.
So all the DNA that they had, the witnesses, the testimonies, and he's still like, "Nah, I didn't do the shit."
You sound like one of these progressives.
He's fucking just wicked to the bone.
Delulu.
Samuel was sentenced to serve 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. On May 17th, 2018, Samuel was interviewed by a Texas Ranger by the name of James Holland, who was investigating the death of Christie brothers in Odessa, Texas in 1994. That was the prostitute who Samuel was getting high in the room with her and her boyfriend to try and ease him because he didn't like the fact that she was there with him.
Yeah.
And they couldn't fucking get even a description of him. So the MO matched enough, and that's why he went out there to go and interview him. Holland promised Little that if he cooperated that he would not seek the death penalty. Samuel agreed after reiterating that he was innocent of all the crimes. Holland replied with, "Sure, yeah, I know all about that. I know all about you. I've been studying you, and you know what? I admire you. I think they got you all wrong calling you a rapist. You're not a rapist, and I could prove it." But he's already trying to like get in his head and, play games with him. Samuel replied, "I didn't rape nobody. I never hit a woman with a closed fist in my life. I didn't hurt them." Holland agreed, "Nah, you didn't need to do that. You never did that. You don't need to take nothing from no one." And then he quickly changed the subject with, "Let me ask you something. How do you like it here?" Samuel said, "Here? I fucking hate it here. I got a code on my jacket that I never even got arrested for. I should be a level 3 and I'm a level 4 and I never did them things." Holland, smooth as hell, says, "Now there I can help, but you're the captain of the boat, the pilot of the plane. I want to hear about your life because this is what I do and you're important. I'll tell you what I could do. If you tell me about this Texas case, I'm going to go present that to the grand jury. And if we corroborate the facts and you get indicted, I can get you out of here. I'm going to fly out on a special plane. It's a really cool plane. I'm going to pick you up and you and me will go to Texas. But in order for that to happen, I would appreciate it if you tell me about these things and what you tell me is all the truth." Samuel, after a brief pause, didn't answer and instead changed the subject to say, "LAPD says I'm a rapist. It was all over the TV. What is her fucking name? I can't remember. The lying whore detective." Holland replied, "Mitzi Roberts? Yeah, she's a fucking cunt. You can set the record straight right now." Samuel laughed and asked, "What do they call you again?" So he's already like piquing his interest now. Holland said, "People who don't know me call me James. People who know me call me Jim. And my mom calls me Jimmy." Samuel, trying to rattle his cage a little bit, said, "I think I'll call you Jimmy." Holland replies, "Okay, I'll call you Sammy." Samuel snarled and says, "No one calls me Sammy." In which Holland replied, "Well, no man calls me Jimmy." So he was quick. He was quick with it. He was
that Southern pride.
You know what I mean? Like he was very, very quick with the comebacks for Samuel. So Samuel laughed and then not only began to talk about the murder of Christie brothers, but would then continue talking about other murders. In October 2017, author Jillian Lauren interviewed Mitzi Roberts over the Black Dahlia case that she worked on. When Roberts made mention of the Samuel Little case, Jillian was intrigued and started to write him. In fact, Jillian even visited Little in prison while Little tried to convince Jillian to buy him a TV. Jillian, however, made it clear that she would not be buying him anything unless he was truthful with her. Because remember, Jillian, I mentioned her in one of the prior episodes, was the author, the crime author that solved one of the other murders.
Yeah. She's trying to get the details out of him.
Yeah. So that caused Samuel to confess to his very first murder, the 1970 murder of Mary Jo Brosley, and then told her he murdered around 86 women at that time.
Damn.
Which, obviously, this number grows and he's killed more than that. He added, "I only ever told this to one other person in my life, Texas Ranger Jimmy Holland. Him and you're my only friends." Delusional ass.
What is wrong with him?
He's fucking twisted, bro. On September 23rd, 2018, Little was flown out to Texas. While awaiting another trial, he began to confess to other murders, James Holland, totaling the 93. Holland began to contact every major law enforcement agency in the country to inform them that Samuel had started talking. Agencies from all over the country searched their cold case files that fit Samuel's MO, and they would fly to Texas, lining up to try and get a confession with the aid of these investigations. Samuel would then draw during these. I'm sorry, tongue twister. So Samuel, during these interviews, what aided them was the fact that he had these very depicted drawings that he made of his victims, of a lot of them. He would use them as masturbatory aids while he was locked up. Disgusting.
Yeah.
December 13th, 2018, Samuel was given a 4th life sentence for the murder of Christie brothers. By this time, 34 of his 93 victims were confirmed. And remember, I want to set the record straight on that too. I think I said that it was 60 out of the 93 that they confirmed when this was all said and done. It was 61.
Okay.
So I was one number off. My bad. Jillian Lauren would maintain a relationship with Samuel because she knew she could get him to tell her things that he wouldn't want to tell any other law enforcement. In fact, Samuel became so delusional, he believed that Jillian truly cared for him and would tell her obscene things such as, "I'm not able to fuck you, but you're mine, and you'll be mine forever in heaven." Yeah.
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 He tripping.
Yeah. May 31st, 2019, Samuel would receive 2 more life sentences for the murder of Mary Jo Payton and Rose Evans. December 30th, 2020, after catching COVID along with heart complications, Samuel Little finally died at the age of 80. Before he died, Samuel told Jillian, "I'm sorry and I'm shamed about the deaths of these women." Now get this.
What's up?
Jillian, he already knows, right? She said, "Nah, you don't mean it. You're full of shit," right? And then Samuel replied with, "Yeah, you got me. I put on a show for the world, for the public. They're strangers. They don't really know me. All I can do is pray for my soul. God says that murdering is no seriouser than the stealing of a candy bar." Twisted motherfucker,
Yeah,
through and through.
He messed up. COVID took him, huh?
Yeah. Well, he already had deteriorating health.
80?
Yeah. He was already, barely able to walk. He was using a wheelchair most places. He had already had diabetes, heart problems.
It's crazy.
So
though.
getting COVID on top of that is what finally did him in.
Well, that's the end.
That is finally the end of this monster. And our next episode, we're going to wrap this up with some thoughts that Lamont didn't share from the last episode, because boy, he sure talked a lot on that one. As always, go ahead. Take us out, man.
Chill out. Hold on. Don't do me like that. Don't do me in. Like always, subscribe, share, show that you care.